So hello everyone. Did you enjoy your lunch? Now you have a bit more energy to focus and to learn about very useful and fascinating things that are coming. My name is Andrii. I will be introducing our two workshop guides for today. I remember when I joined Toastmasters, there were a ton of things to learn, and honestly my head was spinning a little bit. Do I focus more on my body language? Do I focus more on my time management skills? And it was a bit difficult. You know that we have our manuals right now, educational manuals. But maybe you heard that our organization now switching its educational way to pathways, to a new program. And I'm pretty sure it will not only shape our organization, but shape educational path of every one of us. And when you have this new terrain, you need to navigate it somehow, right? So you need some guides, some people who has experience and understanding of this terrain. And today, we will have two guides. Mario, who is a Toastmaster from 2009. He started in Bern, so he has miles and miles of public speaking behind him, a lot of experience. And we have Luca today, who not only also an experienced Toastmasters, he took a lot of leadership roles, but he also has this tendency of big picture of addressing like policy question, energy, or climate change. Maybe you heard his speeches. So he will provide some overview of the terrain, overview of the pathways programs and how we can navigate it. So keep attention, it is very, very important, and please help me in joining Luca.
Thank you, Andrii. Pathways, it's an amazing term, I think. It was chosen very appropriately, but it's really scary because we don't know about it. And like new things, we need to practice new things. Now, those who are new members have no choice. Pathway is the way to move forward. So those from Fribourg, for instance, who have just chartered as a club very recently, that is the way to go. And we will hear that for those, like myself and many of us, who are in the middle between the old manual paper-based system and the current one, things can be different. Now, Andrii mentioned guides, and not only we have Mario, who, as a Pathways guide, helped out in the rollout, but we also are happy to have Katja Töttler from Bern, who has done exactly the same job as Mario. And so we should thank you two. And I don't look like Karina Shea, who should have been doing this, because Karina, unfortunately, couldn't be here for family reasons. But Karina's been instrumental in the rollout of Pathways, also in her role as Pathways ambassador. So many of really the people who worked behind the scenes to make sure that Pathways rollout was a success are in the room. What is my role here? Apart from having helped with, of course, the organization of the SOL, I'm also a vice president of education. So I am the person that within the EPFL club has to deal with all of the intricacies of Pathways. And members look to me in order to, what do we do? What is this base camp thing? And how do we manage this whole transition? And this is what we are here for. Now, granted, some of you are just users, maybe relatively new users. Others might be club officers. And so there might be more tougher questions, and questions of the behind the scenes, what happens and what I do this. This is what we're aiming to do today. So with Mario's help, we're going to do a run on what it is that we're doing and the different tools that we have. And then, together with the help also of Richard Spitz, who is the president of EPFL, we're going to do a live demonstration on how to use Basecamp, the web-based tool that we need in order to run Pathways. I should say, to run Pathways the way it should be. You could still use the paper-based manuals, but you know what? It's the new generation. It's online. It's internet-based. It's audio, video. It's podcasts. It's webs. It's web blogs, websites. You have to embrace it. It's change. It's tough. But we're here to help, because Toastmaster is about managing change, because let's face it, as climate does, we keep changing, and change is natural and is good. And happy welcome on stage, Mario.
start with just a short little story, a personal story. Back in April, a few weeks after the Pathways rollout, one of our more experienced club members decided to start her Pathways journey. So she logged into Toastmasters.org, jumped through the hoops that she needed to get into Basecamp, found her new path, found her first level project, the icebreaker. She clicked the launch button, and nothing happened. So she didn't know what to do. She logged out. She went back in. She got to her project, clicked the launch button, and again, nothing happened. She did that 3 or 4 times, and at a complete, from enthusiasm, she went to frustration and then anger. And so what did she do? She called her Pathway Guide. Now, normally the Pathway Guide would hand any irate members over to the VPE, but in this case, I happen to live with this distinguished Toastmaster. So I was obligated to help her through this pitfall. There are a few little things that we'll try and touch on today to help those of you that are just learning Pathways to avoid these pitfalls, to make the transition a little bit smoother. With a little bit of effort, a little bit of patience, all of you can become very functional Basecamp users. I'd like to start by taking a step back, and before I do that, how many of you have actually selected a path and now have access to Basecamp? Okay, and there's a few, those that have not, 1, have not, 2, anybody else has not selected a path? Okay, good, great. So let me take a brief step backwards and talk about what it is. Luca touched on this. So I want to compare what Pathways is to the traditional program. So as Luca mentioned, the traditional program is printed manuals. So those of you that were members before March of this year, you probably saw these manuals. It was the communication track, the competent communicator manual, the competent leader manual, and then there were advanced manuals after that. Pathways is, of course, a new online education program, and these two will run in parallel for about another 18 months. So those of you that are on the old traditional system can finish whatever projects you'd like to over the next 18 months, and then it will phase out and will only be Pathways. For those of you that are members since March 20 of this year, your only option is Pathways. Now, what's important to know is that the old manuals are static. There's no interaction. It's material that's been around for many years. It was changed very infrequently. And today we have a complete new learning system. And you'll find that much of the content is interactive. This is going to be a rather messy, busy slide, but it's important to understand how it worked before. So we had a leadership track and a communications track, and they were separate manuals. Today, Pathways is going to merge these. And this, by the way, was the path to become a distinguished Toastmaster. And today there's still a path to DTM, and it involves completing 2 Pathways paths and all of the other additional work that you have to do to serve your club and the district and provide education, coaching and mentoring a club. So all of that extracurricular activity is still there, but it's a similar path. The important takeaway message here is that the communication and leadership paths are now together into Pathways. A brief note about Easy Speak and Pathways. Pathways is the Toastmasters.org new education system. Easy Speak is today and always has been an independent platform. It has nothing to do with Toastmasters.org management, so that is maintained separately. You should consider Easy Speak as the club portal. This is where you do all of your meeting schedules, schedule your speeches, whether they be from the traditional education system or the new Pathways projects. You still take roles through there, and the VPEs can still monitor progress for the speeches you gave that are logged in Easy Speak. Pathways now has a personal portal for all of you. It's called Basecamp. So this is where you go to track your education, to track your, you'll find education resources. You'll have the evaluation resources, which are the speech evaluation forms. And there's a place that we're going to demonstrate later, which is the feedback forum. And this is to have intra-club communications. And here, the VPEs and the club president and the club secretary can monitor your progress, but they can't change anything inside of your personal portal. That's for you. So these are the 10 paths if you haven't already seen them. And for those of you that are brand new to Pathways, I just wanted to put it up there briefly. We're going to compress an hour-and-a-half presentation into about 20 minutes today, so I'm going to really zip through this. Every path has these 5 levels, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but there's a couple of things to point out here, because when you first come into Pathways, you're going to start obviously at level 1, and level 1 is pretty much the same for all of the paths. You have to do your icebreaker at the beginning of each path. Some people say, what do you mean I have to do my icebreaker again? Well, think of that as an opportunity. I know that the first time I did my icebreaker in the Competent Communicator Manual, it was a little bit rough. And I'm really looking forward to doing it again and a third time so that I have a chance to polish how I introduce myself. Another important thing I'd like to point out is that each of these are projects. So icebreaker is project 1 in level 1. The evaluation and feedback is project 2. One thing that many members have stumbled on is that in evaluation and feedback is actually 2 speeches. So you have to be careful to walk yourself through the project, do your first speech, and then the intention is that you get feedback from that first speech, and you use that feedback to give the speech again so that you improve using that feedback. So I think that's a very useful tool. So there will be 1, 2, 3, and then a 4th speech in Project 3. Once you complete all of those steps, you move on to level 2. Those of you that have not selected a path, you can find information on the Toastmasters.org website. And if you just click on Pathways, you'll see that there's Learn More About Pathways. That takes you to the Pathways overview. This link here, I think, is very interesting because it gives, in my opinion, a better overview of the paths and all of the projects that come under each path. So District 1, toastmasters.org/pathways. Following this presentation, I'm going to update a PDF file that I'll make available to all of the VPEs, and they should make it available to all of you. These links will be there. The other thing that's interesting in Pathways is that the idea is to give awards more frequently. There's actually, you get an award after the 3rd level, and then when you complete a path, a certificate. And these are badges that members can award each other. This is something new in Pathways, and we're actually going to try and demonstrate that today. The other big change has to do with evaluations. So in the traditional manuals, evaluations weren't very consistent from one member to another. It really took a lot of skill and practice. Pathways is trying to normalize or be more consistent in how evaluations are done. So there's clear statements that are part of the evaluation forms that the evaluator can read, and then they can score on all of these different areas how the speaker did, so a score of 1 to 5. Now, what has made it more consistent is this description of how to score. So you can take any one of these categories and see how the speaker fit into that category and then mark them. Be aware that actually a score of 2 and 3 is not all that bad. It means that you're doing well. So those of you that haven't come into Pathways, I'm going to step through this briefly. This is the beginning of what Basecamp looks like. Before you choose your path, it's necessary for you to select online access or printed materials. Most people are doing online access. It's free for your first path, and I really recommend that you do this sooner rather than later. Even if you're working on the old manual, do this so that you can have access to Basecamp, have access to all of the resources. So once you select Basecamp, then you'll take an assessment. This takes about 10 minutes. You answer some questions about yourself. And Pathways will recommend 3 paths. Now, many people are saying that's not the path I had in mind. So you simply scroll down and you'll see the other paths that are available, and you can pick one of these. It's something that I did. I didn't take the recommended path. So when you come into Basecamp for the first time, there's a couple of things that are going to happen. You'll see this pull-down list here, and I'll show you in a live one. But if you belong to more than one club, you have to select the club that you want to be active in for that session. If you're going to be giving speeches, you want to make sure that you're logged in most recently with the club where you're giving a speech. And then you log in, and for the first time coming to Basecamp, you should take advantage of the tour that'll show you what all of the major areas are. And the other thing that it'll do is check compatibility of your browser, because it has to allow pop-ups. All of the content is coming up in a pop-up window. So let's go quickly now to the demonstration. Okay, I'll press on. So I've already logged into Toastmasters.org, and now I'm going to go to Pathways. I'm going to go to Basecamp. Hopefully, yes. So here, I actually have 2 choices. Because I'm a Pathway guide, it's an alternative for me to go there. If you belong to 2 clubs, you'll see the 2 clubs listed. You select the club that you want to log in as, like for speakers in my case, and I log in as a member. So one of the things that you should do when you first come to Basecamp is go to the Navigating Basecamp. And I'm just going to touch on that really quickly to show you what's there. Take the time to click on these and to go through all of these to learn how to navigate Basecamp. How to set up your profile, how to work in my projects. That's really a valuable one. It'll help you get through some of these problems that my distinguished Toastmaster didn't bother to do in my case. So feedback and recognition is something we're going to touch on today. Also, how to complete the level. A lot of people are getting hung up not only on how to complete a level, but how to complete a project, which I'm going to talk about now. And then there's some frequently asked questions here. The other thing that you should do, I won't go home, you'll find much of this material under tutorials and resources. And if you go there, there's tons of information, videos, PDF, quick references, so there's lots of information for you to see. So later we're going to talk about my feedback. My badges have to do with badges that were awarded to you. And speech evaluations is a special place where you can find only all of the documents for people that are giving speeches. Let's first go to my education transcript. This is where I think the heart of the matter is. So in my case, I have lots of materials here because I've been a Pathways guide. There's lots of information that I've loaded in here. To cut through the noise, there's one thing that you can do. Click on this far right pull-down list and click on curriculum. So if you want to find your path information, and here I have a special Pathways guide task. You can ignore that. So only your paths, your education curriculum will show up. So mine is Visionary Communications, and I open the curriculum. And here's my level 1 work. So when you first come here, you'll only see the icebreaker, and you won't see projects 2 and 3. They won't be visible. So the idea is to drive you to finishing your icebreaker before you get confused by the other materials. And you click the launch button, and we'll go to a new window. Now, 2 things here. my distinguished Toastmaster that lives with me, when she first came here, this window was behind the primary window. So that's why nothing happened. So in this case, it happened to pop forward, and it's taking time to load. But if you're in the full screen mode, you may not see this screen. So you have to look for it to make sure that it's there. And if you go down here at this bar, you'll see that there's this window that's opening. Now, the second thing that you have to be aware of is this window that pops up is always too small. You have to expand it. This is always the case. On every computer that I've tried this on, you have to expand the window even further, actually, until you see the arrows on the left and on the right. The reason that there's not one on the right is because I'm at the end of the project. I use this navigation button to go to the start. And this is where you start in the icebreaker project. And in fact, every project starts here. And then you start navigating through your project. Here's the introduction about the icebreaker. I'm going to step through this just very quickly. You get brief information about how to navigate and giving you directions. There's a project checklist at the beginning that you should open up. It's a PDF file. And then you take a self-assessment about how you feel in giving a presentation. So there's 5 questions that you will just answer very quickly. You grade yourself. And then I'll press forward. So then there's a number of all of these steps that are here. I'm just going to quickly go through this. So we come down to complete your assignment. And we move forward. So here there's a couple of things I want to say. First of all, if you're the kind of person that likes to have paper, this Print My Project is the whole project. And you can do this for every project in Pathways. And you can build a binder so that you have a hard copy instead of the printed materials. You can print it yourself. So all of the information is there. The other thing is the evaluation resource. This is something that you need to download and send to your evaluator before your speech. Very important. The question always comes up, who's responsible for giving the evaluation resource, the evaluation form, to the evaluator? Every club should make its own policy, but in my opinion, it's like the old manuals. You had to bring it with you, hand it to your evaluator for them to write their evaluation. So in my opinion, it's the speaker's responsibility to bring that form to the meeting and also to email it to the evaluator in advance. Now, what happens next is very critical. You're going to answer the same questions you answered at the beginning of the project to do a self-evaluation of how you feel after your project, after your speech. And the thing that you have to do is when you've answered those 5 questions a second time is click the submit button. Now, a lot of people didn't realize that, and they were never able, and here's what happens after you click the submit button. You get a before and after score, and then you're finished. And when that happens, you can close this window. And when you've clicked the submit button, you'll get a check mark next to the icebreaker, and then projects 2 and 3 will appear. So there are a couple of stumbling blocks. One is the pop-up window, finding that it's there when you launch your project. The second one is to expand the window. The third one is to make sure you do the self-evaluation at the end of the project so that you can move forward. And just for reference, I can see what the future projects are, but they're not active until I finish level 1. How am I doing on time? Okay, I'll take, yes. Was there a question?
Yes, just to go back to the evaluation bit.
Yeah.
When you finish a speech, we've had some issues with people who have finished speeches, but you've mentioned it before. Everybody should be on Pathway to be able to give an evaluation to somebody who's given a speech for Pathway, right?
No, that's a good question. I'm glad you asked that. you do not have to be on Pathways to give an evaluation. So one of our members is not there yet. If I'm on Pathways and I want her to evaluate me, I simply email the PDF document to her, and I bring a copy for her to have, hard copy. I give my speech, she writes the evaluation, and then a couple of things can happen, actually 3 things can happen. She can hand me the PDF document that has her handwritten notes, and then it's my responsibility to keep that and to turn it into an electronic copy. I can scan it or take a picture of it if I want to store it somewhere. Or she can use the PDF document that you emailed to her and go home and type in very nice notes, maybe expand on her evaluation, and email the completed PDF to you. She does not have to be in Basecamp to do that.
So that leads on to another question. After you've given a speech, she gives you a hard copy of your evaluation. How do you progress then to your next speech without receiving an evaluation online?
Okay. So you can, in the project, example, the icebreaker, as I step through it, I go to that last step and I do the self-evaluation, and I submit, after I've given my speech about how I felt about how I spoke, how comfortable I was, I click submit, the project is checked off, and I move on to the next project. Done. Okay, so people, if they wanted to, they could cheat. But it's the VPE's job to know when people have spoken and to request, if necessary, the evaluation forms. So you should keep those evaluation forms safe, store them digitally if you can, and in fact there's a place to do that, and we'll touch on that here today.
Thank you.
How are we on time? 25. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to now go into the My Feedback, and we're going to have a brief demonstration between Luca and Richard. And can you take over now, Luca? Okay. You can do it from there, or you come up here.
Let me get here so that I can be in front of people. Let me change input. Fortunately, it looks like the cable for the connection here is not that long, so I need to get in and out a bit of the picture.
I'm going to be up here with you. Right. So I'll talk you through it. How's that?
We could do that. Yeah, just so you know, what I'm doing right now is I'm using an iPad. Right? You see that the screen rotates and all. So even with simple devices such as an iPad, and I'm using the Chrome browser because it works better, but it also works, right? So there's no need to have a PC, a Mac, or anything. Just an iPad would do it. Okay.
What I think is really important about what Luca just said is that whenever you have time, you have your iPad or your notebook, your tablet with you. You can take time to log in and go through some of this educational material.
And it works nicely. The screen is already large. There's the arrow, so no problem. I just tried it. So
well, I want to do 2 things right now with the time we have left. One is to actually have Luca send an evaluation, and then Richard is going to send an evaluation back to Luca, and then we'll talk about how that's done. So let's start that.
So let me log in first and foremost. I'm logging in onto the Toastmasters.org website as normal. So I'm now logged in. You see, welcome, Luca. But I don't need to go in there. In fact, what I need to look for is in the Pathways menu is access my path through Basecamp. And now the system connects me to the same page that you've seen with Mario. Now, being a vice president of education, I also have the additional button to log in as a Basecamp manager, but we're not going to rely on that at all. I'm just going to be a normal member who will be doing an evaluation for another normal member. It just so happened that he's a president, but it's not really that important. So I'm logging in as a member. And now, pop-up, remember, turn off the pop-up. You see my icon right there. I got a little picture that I added. That is me. I am within my profile at this time. Okay? Now, if I want to send, it's called feedback, but you really can attach your evaluation. It's really a messaging system that we have within Pathways. Now, granted, you can use email, but if I just type, and I don't say maybe have the email of my friend at Toastmasters, and I just type the name, there is only one Richard in our club, And by the way, this is for club only, so you will only see your club members. Here we are. We got Richard, he's the club president. We've got his email. Oops, I'm not going to show it. Okay. So you could email him the PDF file if you wanted to. But let's go the messaging way. Now, you see here a feedback tab. So Basecamp profile, that's what we're seeing. If I click on the feedback part, it'll change. And here's the point that we're interested in. Share your feedback. Now, feedback are text, but you can also add a file with the clip. And you can also add badges, and we'll see badges a little later. Now, in this case, we were at the club meeting, and I was the evaluator of Richard, so I have prepared already the PDF file with my evaluation in it. Now, in my case, I've used the PDF with a PDF editor, and I typed it in. It could have very well been a paper version that he brought to the club meeting, and then I took a picture, I scanned it. There's applications these days running on iPad. You can create a PDF with OCR, that is, the text is recognized. They cost like 5 francs or something. They're wonderful, amazing things. Now, you have the file. You can have it on the iPad as well. It works. And here is the evaluation, whatever. You. Oh. Okay. Now, few important things. Who would like to see your feedback? Now remember, feedback can be broad, and they could be addressed to the whole club, or they could only be sent to a specific subgroup of the club. Let's open that drop down. You see, everyone is the broadest, or everyone in the club sees them. But we also have Richard Spitz's managers. I think it's very misleading, because in the end, Richard Spitz's manager is really the club officers. Okay? So when we say that you members of the club should provide feedback about how we're running meetings and things like that, this is a way to do it. Because your feedback will actually only be sent to the club officers and not to everyone else. But in this case, this is an evaluation. It's personal data, that information should not really be seen by everyone. So I'm going to select Richard Spitz, and I'm going to deselect everyone. I think it's a little bit of a bug. There should be a radio button, and you select one or the other, but that's how I've decided to do it. And here we are. So only Richard will get to see this feedback, and I need to add the file. So I'm going to tap on that little clip, and then I'm going to select the file. Now you see, take photo or video or photo library. Even if you have an iPad, you could do it on the spot at that very moment. Now, I have a PDF, so I'm going to do browse. I have it on my Dropbox, and it's right there. So I have already uploaded it on the Dropbox. I'm selecting it, and here we are. It's on there, 654 kilobytes. Okay? I'm done. I've selected the right destination. I have the feedback, and I have the file. I can post it. Okay? Now, that's precisely what I have done. I have sent a message to Richard as a private message with the evaluation. And I think you should have received it, Richard. Is that correct? Want to show it to us?
Actually, I'm very curious about that part, because a couple of weeks ago I did exactly the same thing, and when I was clicking on the file, it was coming error, blah, blah, blah. It was not showing.
There can be errors on the website.
Okay.
There can be, and I've seen one yesterday where I wanted to do something and an ASP error message. It's a Microsoft website error. We should report those to Toastmasters, because those are technical mistakes, technical errors, bugs on the website. They can happen.
Richard, did you send one to?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, so we're gonna. Okay, fine. So in my case, remember, I'm actually looking at Richard's feedback in that I'm sending private feedback to him. And so what I'm seeing here is Richard. Remember that I clicked on Richard's name up there. So let me go back to my home. So I click on the small home button that I have there, and I'm going back to my home. Okay, this is me, and I can go and check my feedback, because it just so happened that I also did a speech, and Richard was my evaluator, and he has sent me some feedback. Now, if I go and you see Luca Bertagnolio feedback, so that is me, that is my page. Oh, look, aha. So, great job, cool. So he sent me his evaluation. I can open it up. It's a normal web thing, and so right now I do have his PDF, which of course I can do whatever with. I can send it to another application, I can print it. This is just a standard interface that you would have if you open a web browser from a website.
Let's take a moment now,
yes,
while you're there, Luca, to go to the ePortfolio, go to your homepage.
Yes.
It's actually here. So when you click on your My Education transcript or the feedback, you'll see this tab for ePortfolio. And here you'll find all your accumulated badges and also the documents. It's like the My Documents in the cloud for Toastmasters, actually, Basecamp. If you click on that, Luca.
In fact, you will find my actual document in that.
So
I've
you
already
have-
done the icebreaker on Pathways.
You have 6 folders here, and logically you might want to put all of your files, any documents that you saved, as well as your evaluations for level 1 in the level 1 folder. But you can organize this any way you want, level 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then My Documents is just an open space. So this is like cloud storage for all of your Toastmasters information that you want to hold.
I don't think there's anything too private in there. Okay, you see, this is a scan page, right? So it was written by hand by the lady who evaluated me. I then scanned it in and put it in the ePortfolio. Okay, it's not mandated to do it. Toastmasters and either Basecamp checks on you whether you do have the PDF file in. It's for your reference only. So if you want to stash them on your hard drive on any, filing system you want, that's fine. But here, Toastmaster gives you a joint common framework where you can put the data in for your reference further down the line.
This is your personal storage. Your managers don't have access to any of this. So if the VPE says, can you show me all of the evaluations for your level 1? I just need to make sure you gave 4 speeches and not 3. Then if you store them here, they're easily available. Now the small hiccup in Basecamp is that when you receive the PDF within Basecamp, you still have to load it someplace and then upload it into this file. There's no easy way to transfer it to this folder. So it's a little bit cumbersome. If you get it by email, you do end up doing the same thing. You save it some on your desktop and then upload it into a file or onto storage. Okay?
Now, the one thing to notice is that there is also a generic My Documents folder where you could have any documents that might be relevant to your educational path. It's not really related to one specific of the level of your path, and you could put those documents in there.
How are we on time?
Starting at 35, so we should really.
Okay.
Just show the badges.
Luca, if you click on Richard's name again at the top, search. So rather than sending him a PDF document, if he wants to award a badge to anyone in the club for some exceptional service, he's doing Richard again. And thanks for your help today. And rather than clicking on the paperclip, he's going to click on this badge icon here. And then he can award him any of these badges for his service today. Was he exceptional?
He was inspirational.
Ah, okay. And then he's going to post that.
So the check mark you see down here, this is for display of what was already sent in the past. So if you want to see only feedback or only badges or none of the two, this is regardless. This is you inputting. This is what you see down here. And in this case, both are selected, and I would see both, although I only have messages at this time. So if I say post, it's going to go out. Now remember one thing. Badges are visible to everyone. Badges are not sent to one member only or to the managers, right? Badges are for everyone to see. And right now, Richard has received that badge from me. And I think I might have received the badge too.
So we're out of time now, and we've covered a lot of ground as quickly as possible. So I'm sure you have lots more questions. I'm available. Katya is available. So if you have any questions outside of the session, just corner us over a coffee, and we'll try and answer all your questions.
Yep.
Right. Is there any burning questions that come to mind? Good.
All right.
Okay.
Enjoy Pathways, and we're around, and pester us with questions because this is very, very important. Thank you, Mario.
Thank you.
Thank you all.